Hey there, YouTube. This is Michael with on Tech Tutorials again. This week, I'm actually going to be running you through. I'm going to be running you through the Intune Admin Center. I am using a different tenant this time. I'm using my usual tenant that I use for everything else. The one that I've been using for the past couple of videos doesn't have any active Intune licenses on it, and I don't really feel like paying for more. So I'm going to be using the trial tenant that I've had for a while and running through the Intune Admin Center here. So I can show you the different properties and things like that. Just a side note, I have Chrome up for a minute just to show you something. The Intune Admin Center does not work on Chrome. The last time I tried, it did not work on Edge either. I don't know if that's been fixed. It only, to my knowledge, at this point right now, only works on Internet Explorer. If it works on Edge, great. Then they fixed that since. But just to show you, I just did a test here, and if you try to go to the Intune Admin Center, which is down here, it'll spin as if it's trying to connect to the portal. You'll sign in. Um, it makes you sign in again. You can also get to the Intune Admin Center separately by going to its manage.microsoft.com. You don't actually have to go through Office 365. But this is the screen you get if you're using Chrome. Um, Although I just realized that I am in incognito, so it may be non-supported browser mode. But when I did this a couple months ago, it only worked in Internet Explorer anyway. But I'm going to stop going on about browser issues and get out of here and show you the Intune Admin Center. So the Intune Admin Center, um, it's Office 365's mobile device management, similar to what is it, Mobile Iron, AirWatch, things like that, um, where basically you have more control over your users' devices if they choose to add their corporate information or your corporate information to their mobile devices, whether it's a phone that you gave them or if it's their own personal phone. There are certain things that you can see on their phone, certain things that you cannot. Like for instance, even as the IT admin, you can't see things like camera roll and text messages and things like that. But you can, see the devices enrolled in Intune. You can see the model, the serial number. You can see app names and things like that. Make sure it's compliant, etc. These links here aren't anything for me to go over. These links are just basically little bulletins, how-tos, what's new, forums to ask questions, things like that. These aren't actual admin controls. These are just informational things. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the group section over here. So I don't actually have a device enrolled on Intune on this tenant because the only mobile device I have is enrolled in Intune, but through work, not this. So, and that's another thing, you can't enroll the same device in more than one Office 365 or more than one Microsoft Intune setup because you have to log into the company portal app, which is available in the app stores, to actually enroll a device in Intune, and you can only sign into one at a time. If you want to enroll in a different one, you need to sign out of the current one. It's just all there is to it. There's nothing, it's not really changeable. You can't get around that. So these reports over here, now you'll see add users and create groups and things like that. When I go to my all users section, these users here are the ones that are carried over from Office 365. These are the two users, which are the only two users in this tenant. Um, don't get me started on this user here. That's the name I made up a while ago. Um, but these are showing up here because they have Intune licenses on Office 365. They're not enrolled, but they have the licenses, so they're here. And so looking back at the overview, I can directly add users here, or I can create groups of users such as it's the same effect basically. If you were to add a user in 365 and give it the Intune license, and the groups are actually, I believe here they are the equivalent of the security groups in Office 365 because when you're assigning permissions security permissions, whether it's Intune or any security permission that you're signing in 365, it goes off security groups, not distribution groups, not dynamic distribution groups, um, just the security groups. These reports here are pretty self-explanatory: computer inventory, mobile device inventory, device history, certificate compliance reports, and that's, there we go. Health attest, I'm not going to pronounce that right, but the health reports as well, basically to make sure that those devices are functioning properly, that they're in compliance, things like that. Um, so I don't have any ungrouped users per se because I don't actually, I'm sorry, I do, because I don't have groups, so any users that I have are going to be the ungrouped users. Like I said, I don't have anything enrolled here because my phone is already on a different Intune tenant. But the general tab is pretty self-explanatory for all of these. Just goes over the general information. Going to all devices. There we go. Any devices that are enrolled in Intune will show here. Device type, ownership, last updated, the OS on the phone, whether it's Windows, iPhone, Android, etc. And same thing, you can also enroll computers in Intune, and generally you see these for laptops and tablets and things like that. Windows 10 obviously is compatible. I believe Windows 8 is. I'm not sure Windows 7. Um, and then we can go ahead and go into all mobile devices. Um, Once again, these just show the mobile devices themselves instead of the computers. Um, the direct managed devices are going to be the ones that you have direct control over. I believe these are like if you're if it's a company issued phone, as opposed to a user bringing their own phone. And then these are the Activesync managed devices. If you remember, a couple of videos ago, I did the Exchange Admin Center overview. I believe that was not last week's video, but the week before. Um, and I showed you a few of the properties in there for mobile device management that was severely limited compared to Intune, but this is where those devices would show up. No, I'm sorry. The direct managed devices are the ones that are managed in Intune, regardless of whether it's your corporate phone or if it's a user's phone. The Exchange Activesync is the one in the Exchange Admin Center. Uh, Pre-enrolled devices, once again, I don't have anything here, but these are the company issued phones that you guys would hand out to your users. And then the ungrouped devices, which once again is going to be blank because I don't have devices in this tenant. Moving on to the alert section. There's not too much for the alert section. Basically, these are not even phone alerts or user notification errors. These are just like general Intune alerts and things like that. Like the service health dashboard in 365 that shows if there's an issue with the services, Intune service health. It's kind of the same thing in that. Going to the system and the mobile device management tab. There's not too much to show here. Once again, these are all just the alerts, and if anything is going on with these, going to be nothing to show here for you. So I'm going to move on to the apps. So these are basically, you can use Intune, you can use the company portal to deploy apps to your users. I don't know, say you want them to have the MS Outlook app, the Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, what have you. Maybe you have an app that you built and it's on, and you put it on the App Store, and you want to push it out to the users. You do that through Intune. You do that through the company portal. Volume purchased apps, it's like a computer software. Pretty straightforward here. All right, so the policies are probably the most intensive piece of the Intune Admin Center and the part that, at least I know just for my own testing purposes, I was using the most. So the non-compliant apps report basically, if you set so that way users aren't allowed to download certain apps. I don't know, they can't download Facebook on their phone, and you see Facebook or you see the Messenger app on their phone, things like that. Then you get those non-compliant reports. So now, and these are where I can make these policies: Android, iOS. I can enroll Mac OS X machines in Intune, regular Windows machines. And this is basically where you go ahead and you set these policies. So policy conflicts, basically, if you have a handful of policies, but they overlap each other and they conflict with each other, you'll see them here. Configuration policies. So these configuration policies, once again, are basically just for the management of the device itself. You can create a template, you can configure your own policies, but you can't change one of the default Intune templates. So this is one thing, I believe I set this a while ago when I had a device rolled in Intune. Some things I did this test basically just to enforce a password lock on your phone. And I just set an 8 numerical password lock, which is what I keep on my phone. For those of you with iPhones like I have, you can have the 8-digit passcode lock your fingerprint, or I don't remember if Android does that now, but the fingerprint is still there. It still works with Intune, but the passcode that's set, if you don't, if your fingerprint isn't reading or whatever, the passcode that's set still has to meet this criteria, but your fingerprint will still suffice to get into your phone. So these are basically just what I put on these. Minimum password length 8. Require password to unlock it, yes. Specifically numeric passwords. And the biometric security is that fingerprint itself. I just had this set to low so I can just use my thumbprint for it. I don't have these set here as far as password expiration because I don't really feel like changing the passcode on my phone. Password history, basically, Intune would prevent me from, changing the password back to something that it used to be on my phone. Password lock for idle devices and minute of inactivity, self-explanatory. Require encryption. Usually I see that for Android phones, mainly that it's actually required. I don't know if the iPhone has something built in, because with my current job, I always had to encrypt to put my company email on my phone, but that was Android, not with my iPhone. So, for whatever that's worth. Email profile is configured by Intune. Device health. You can set it so that way your users, if it's jailbroken or rooted in terms of Android, then it's out of compliance, and things won't work, and you'll get that report. And this is if I want to set specific requirements in the operating system. So I'm going to go ahead and go to conditional access. So conditional access, basically, you can set it, and it kind of piggybacks off of the compliance policies, but you can set it so that way there's certain things that need to be set in place for Exchange, SharePoint, and Skype for Business, as there's apps for all of those on your phone. I believe there's a Team Sites app on your phone. I can't remember for that, but I know there's OneDrive for Business, which is SharePoint. And there's the Skype for Business or the link apps, and then there's obviously basic email, or you can download the OA app or the Outlook app on your phone. Or you can do this with Exchange on-prem. I'm not going to go too much into the Exchange on-prem side of it because I haven't been able to test that yet. I believe that works in conjunction with SCCM, System Center Configuration Manager. Don't quote me on that though. But so I'm going to go ahead and go into the Exchange Online Policy compliant, the conditional access. And what I can do is I can go ahead and enable conditional access, and then basically I say, okay, all platforms are allowed, but devices have to be within the compliance rules that I've set. Or I can say, no, only specific platforms can go, and then I can choose, all right, maybe I'm issuing out iPhones to all my users. They're company issued phones, and you are only allowed to use that iPhone. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is I'm only going to check off iOS, meaning any Android, any Windows phones I try to connect aren't going to get in. And then I can go ahead and choose to block non-compliant devices, and then block all of the devices and platforms not supported by Intune. For this one, we're looking at more so like older devices that can't necessarily download the company portal. Maybe a lot of the older phones, BlackBerry, things like that, that don't actually have that company portal app. Those aren't supported by Intune, so those will get blocked point blank. Now, what I can do is I can say, okay, this policy is meant to target all my users or selected security groups. Remember, I mentioned those security groups before when you could have created the groups back over here in the group section or in the Office 365 tenant. When you create a security group there, it will show up in here as a list that you can choose from. And now what I did is I actually made this MDM exempt group, which only has that one user, that name that I made up. It only has that one user in it because I learned the hard way that when you are configuring, and I can't remember, I think I did this with Android, so I don't know if it's different with iPhone. But I could only have one email account per Office 365 tenant working with Intune. Both of those accounts are on the same tenant, just two different domains. But what happened was I put Intune against my primary account, that Michael.Kelly account, and the other account, that made up name, would not sync to my phone. And for ages, I was trying to figure it out, ended up going to Office 365 support. Come to find out, you cannot have more than one email account running through Intune. So I made this MDM exempt group, basically saying if I want to re-enroll my phone in Intune, that user in that group and anybody that I put in that group they're not subject to these compliance procedures and these compliance policies. So those emails will sync to my phone without me having to go through anything special. All right, so I'm not actually going to do that. So let's go to the Exchange on-premise policy, which, like I said, I'm not going to go too much into this. I really haven't even gotten a chance to look this over, to be honest with you. I'm just going to go through here, and it looks like a lot of the options are relatively the same. Targeted groups, exempt groups, platform exceptions. It looks like it's actually not necessarily as inclusive as Exchange Online because it's not the cloud service, so 365 and Microsoft Online have less control over your on-premise environment. Excuse me a second. SharePoint Online policy. Pretty much the same thing. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. It's exactly the same thing. And I'm pretty sure Skype is as well. This is just for each of the services, so you can apply these to one specific set of people, or I'm sorry, one specific service. Say you want these conditional policies for Exchange Online, but you want them to be able to access OneDrive and link freely for whatever reason. However you're doing that, you don't have to. It's not an all or nothing. It's one service at a time. Going into Exchange Activesync, this picks up the information from my Office 365 tenant. Once again, back to 2 videos ago when I was showing you the Exchange Activesync information and those policies that were in there. Um, Now, I don't have any rules or anything in here because I never had a need to do any of that. But this is all basically self-explanatory here. Um, I can go through here and then I can choose, okay, say I had a device that was quarantined in this list. All right, allow to access Exchange, block it, or quarantine it. Um, Basically the same options that you saw in the Exchange Admin Center when I went over that. User notification, um, basically, as it says, the device is quarantined or blocked. This is what appears to the user, um, which hopefully would cut down on, too much help desk calls or things like that. If they actually get this notification, then they know, okay, my device was blocked for reason X, Y, and Z. And at that point, if they call in, hey, did you read the notification? Basically, not, okay, let's take forever to troubleshoot this. You should have been told why your device was blocked. Corporate device enrollment. Once again, this is for the company issued phones. Um, and this is just for enrolling the device. I don't really have a device here that will meet those standards. And then the terms and conditions. And this is not like Office 365 or Intune's terms and conditions. These are terms and conditions for you to add for your users that, basically it's like every other EULA that we all hardly read unless it's an actual business contract, things like that, where they need to agree to said terms before they can use Intune. Little side note on the corporate device enrollment, I don't think Android and Google do this since it's those manufacturers are a lot more spread out than Apple is. But I know if you buy so many devices, I don't know what the number is. You'd have to look into it. But basically, at some point, Apple will actually, if you order X amount of phones from Apple that you're going to issue out to your users, they'll actually enroll those devices in your Intune tenant for you. Which saves a lot of headache of trying to get your users to download the company portal to try to get them to understand why you're doing this. You get the phones, they're already enrolled, you hand them out to the users, and if they try to unenroll it, then they can do that, and then they lose their email or they can't get to Skype or OneDrive or whatever, and it just makes your lives easier. Um, for the record, I'm not advertising any product. These are just things that I've learned over the years from work. Going to the reports, and I'm not sure what just happened there. Give me a second. Sorry about that. Okay, ignoring that. Basically, this is kind of just it it condenses all the reports that we went over before and adds a whole slew of new reports. Um, I'm not going to go over every single one of these individually. If you want to look through these, what I'm going to do is you see these here, and let me scroll over to the right a little bit and zoom out. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm just going to click through these. I'm not going to take time to go over every one of these because I'll be on this section here for half an hour. If you want to go ahead and look at these, just go ahead and pause the video as I'm running through these, and then you can go over that. And then once I get through this, then I'm going to go over the last admin tab there on the bottom. So yeah, like I said, if you want to go over these, just go ahead and pause the video and then do that. And the administration. So these are just the last little bit of the admin tasks, the alerts and notifications. You can configure alert types, set up email notifications, select recipients for that, the admin, whoever's managing Intune in your company. associate recipient with notification rules, self-explanatory. Going into the alert types. Um, basically, oh, okay. Um, See it basically these just show you all the different kinds of alerts and things that you can get. I can enable or disable these. Um, and these, I mean, there's really not too much you're not going to find in here. And these, see how they're warning, critical, and informational. If you ever looked at the event viewer, you'll notice and you'll recognize these symbols. It's designed in the same way to kind of keep you used to the same thing. Um, but those are all the alert types, endpoint protection, um, and there's some monitoring here too. Desktop applications to see, and all these alerts are basically things going wrong or just regular notifications, regular warnings that come up. Um, Basically, it's the same information that you would see in the event viewer on your machine. Just this is specifically in relation to what Intune is monitoring as opposed to your local computer health. Microsoft Office, excuse me, Windows, and then we can go to the notices, which we don't really have anything here. Um, but I mean, there's a whole bunch of different things that you can go through here. Um, Multi-factor authentication is one thing here where basically, and I have this with my job actually, is I can go ahead and I can sign into the Intune company portal, but it also sends a notification to a different app on my phone called the Azure Authenticator. Um, and basically I have to verify my identity through that as well. I believe if you don't have the Azure Authenticator app, they can do a text message or a phone call. Um, the Authenticator app is recommended. It just kind of streamlines the whole process. But this is similar to the multi-factor authentication that you can enable in Office 365 just through the regular portal. Um, Certificate connector and the on-premise certificate is like if you're doing that exchange on-prem connector. So there's a trust there between the cloud Intune and your on-prem environment. Enrollment rules, device group mapping, and then the company portal. The company portal is that app that I was talking about, where basically, if somebody signs into my company portal with credentials that I give them for my Office 365 tenant, then I can set this information, and then this information that they'll actually see in the company portal. So they have IT's phone number, they have any sort of help that they need, things like that. And they're not always asking people for that. It's right there in your company portal. But I'm not going to go too much into this, or I should say too much more anyway. Um, if you really want to go through this extensively, I would say go ahead and, as with all the trials, um, these trials are 30 days. You can either get an Intune standalone trial, or you can get the Enterprise Mobility Suite trial, which comes with Intune, Azure Active Directory Premium, and Azure Rights Management. The latter two I will touch on at some point. Still to figure that out. But that's about it for this week's video. Next week, I think I'm either going to do SharePoint Admin Center or Yammer. I am going to tie SharePoint and OneDrive into the same video. I say that originally I was thinking of doing them separately, since even though OneDrive is part of SharePoint, it's commonly seen as its own thing. But since it's really nothing more than just another site in SharePoint, I'm going to do them in the same video. But between that and Yammer, those will be my next two videos. Let me know what you guys think. This will go up on LinkedIn as well, as always. Like, comment, subscribe, tell me what you guys think of it. Always welcome to feedback. Until then, I will see you next week.